Have you ever just stared at a website and thought, how? How does all of this actually work? What's holding it all together behind the scenes? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain. We're going to look at the most basic, fundamental building block of the entire internet, its own set of ABCs.
So let me ask you a question to get us started. What on earth could learning to read and learning to code possibly have in common? I mean, one feels like art and stories, the other feels like pure logic and technology. But believe it or not, they share the exact same starting point.
Yep, it's really that simple. You can't write a novel or even a simple sentence if you don't know your letters. And in the same way, you can't build anything on the web without first learning its alphabet. And as you're about to see, that alphabet is called HTML.
To really get this, let's talk about structure for a second. Think about it. Pretty much every complex thing you can imagine, a story, a skyscraper, even us, needs a solid framework, a skeleton to hold it all together. The web is no different at all.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly it captures the idea. Your body has a skeleton, right? It provides the shape, holds everything in place. Well, HTML does the exact same thing for a web page. It's the invisible framework, giving every single site its basic fundamental structure. So just imagine for a second a web page without that HTML skeleton. It would just be a total mess, a chaotic jumble of text and images and links. HTML is what brings order to that chaos. It arranges everything into a structure that makes sense to us and, maybe more importantly, to our web browsers.
Okay, so we've been using analogies, talking around it, but let's get right to the point. What exactly is this foundational language of the web?
All right, hypertext markup language. Sounds pretty intimidating, doesn't it? But let's just break that down real quick. Hypertext is just a fancy way of saying text that has links to other text. You know, the very thing that makes the web a web. And markup language? That just means it's a language you use to, well, mark up a document, to put labels on things to tell the computer how to show them.
And this right here, this is probably the single most important thing to get. HTML isn't doing stuff like a typical programming language. It's not running complex calculations. It's just describing things. It's a language of labels. It says, hey, this is a headline, or this part is a photo. It's all about meaning and order, just like our ABCs.
Just think about that for a second. Every single browser, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, you name it, they all speak this one universal language. It's the common ground that makes the whole internet work. It's the simple rulebook that organizes trillions of pages of information. It's a huge deal.
So we've covered the why. We know HTML is the skeleton. But what do these bones, these letters of the web, actually look like when you sit down to write them? This is the core idea of how HTML works. Instead of writing out complex commands, you just use these really simple descriptive labels and you wrap them around your content. These labels are called tags, and they basically tell the browser what each piece of content is.
Here we go, our first real example. See those little angle brackets? That's your clue that it's a tag. You've got an opening H1 tag and then a closing one with that /. Everything you put in between those two is now officially the main headline of the page. It's that simple. And here's the other one you'll see everywhere, the P tag for a paragraph. Seriously, just by combining this with the H1 tag we just saw, you've already created a completely structured thought, a headline and the text that explains it. You're already building a document. And this brilliantly illustrates how it all fits together. Think of it like a set of nesting dolls or boxes. The biggest box is the HTML tag. It holds the whole shebang. Inside that, you've got two main parts. The head, which is for all the behind-the-scenes stuff, like the little title you see in your browser tab. And then there's the body. That's where all the stuff you actually see goes. And that's where our H1 headlines and P paragraphs live. Every web page on the entire internet follows this basic blueprint. So, let's bring this all home. What's the big takeaway here? Why does getting this simple idea matter so much? I think the biggest thing that scares people away from coding is this fear of super complex math and logic. But the first step, the most essential one, has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just about organizing information. It's about learning how to build a skeleton. This is it. This is step one. Before you can make a site look beautiful with other tools or make it interactive, you have to give it a solid structure with HTML. Everything, and I really mean everything, in the world of web development is built right on top of this foundation.
And that's really what this is all about. We started by saying that HTML is the alphabet of the web.
Well, an alphabet is just a tool, right? It's what you choose to do with it that really matters. You now understand the fundamental building blocks of the internet, so the only question left is what story are you going to build?